Everyone put their hands up and do exactly as I say. I'm gonna need the keys to that truck of yours. Just in case you're thinking of doing something foolish, we're taking this little lady with us.
I'll give you my keys. Just let her go first.
I'm calling the shots here, Chief.
Watch yourself, White Eyes.
Whoa, what the f*** you doing, old man?
Shoot him, Robert.
Hold your horses,
You
honey.
shoot him or I will.
Hey!
Let her go. We start shooting at your friend there.
This was an impressive first-time feature movie. I find this, I just would describe it as a slow burn exercise in plate spinning, because there's like a point in this film where I just kind of like thought like, wow, he has so many plate spinning right now between how many characters there are and which ones of them don't know what's going on and which one of them do know what's going on, and you know, who knows about the bank robbers, who doesn't know about the bank robbers, who has a gun, who doesn't have a gun. He is just keeping these plates spinning until, you know, shit basically just pops off. And I think there's something there's nothing fancy about this, there's nothing particularly original, but there's a timelessness to the setup and the payoff, and so it works in my opinion. And the climax does eventually happen, but it's very strange because it happens about an hour 10 into this hour and 30-minute movie. And so I'm like, okay, where are we gonna go from here? Because I find that the movie the next 20 minutes that the movie continues for, it eventually just kind of like fizzles out. And so I don't know, I really want to get your opinion on that last 20 minutes. But for me, watching this movie I would compare it to like slowly inflating a balloon until it eventually pops, and then continuing to blow air into the already popped flaccid balloon. Welcome to Theater and Stream, a film podcast. I am Matt, and that is Chuck, and this is episode 43. Today's featured review comes from one of our favorite corners of filmmaking to explore, the world of first-time feature filmmakers. Francis Galluppi's The Last Stop in Yuma County is equal parts Coen Brothers and Quentin Tarantino. But can this little upstart crime thriller step out of the shadow of its influences? We'll get back to that question a bit later in the show. First up, we've got news, we've got surprises, delights, maybe a bitter pill or two for all you Shogun and Lord of the Rings fans out there. In today's watch list, it's a sprinkling of everything: cartoons, documentaries, horror films, and then finally in the Mentionables, we're going to be talking about a couple video games that are on everyone's minds these days. Please do throw us a like, throw us a subscribe if you like what we're doing here on the channel. But otherwise, Chuck, is there anything else you wanted to get out of the way before we start the show in earnest?
Just welcome my son Luca in all his glory. He is foregoing nap time. He's been teething all night. His sleep is irregular. So he's going to be joining us for, maybe this whole thing or just a portion of it. But that's why there's a shirtless infant on your screen right now. And then there's his sister. She's also popping in to say hi. And I know that they can be a disruption, so I will do our best to edit around those distractions, because we got some things that, very bitter things for me to swallow individually here, because I was championing Shogun for being like, we're done. That's it. It's just a book, you nerds. Read it sometime. Mm-hmm. And instead, we're getting season 2. What the hell is it going to be about, and why did this happen? Okay, honey.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting because the first sort of inklings that this was happening was before it was ever even announced. On Thursday, the show submitted for Best Drama Series instead of Best Limited Series at the Emmys. And so people were like, okay, that's kind of weird because you're not a drama series, you are a limited series. And so then on Friday, sort of the floodgates opened, and it was first reported that Hiroyuki Sanada has signed on to a season 2 of Shogun to reprise his role as Toranaga, and that Cosmo Jarvis is also very likely to return, according to Variety sources. And so, yeah, this is very weird because if people don't know, if people are unfamiliar with the book, they finished it. They did everything
It's
that
done.
the book has to offer. It is over. And so, I don't know. I'm gonna blame those stupid chuckle fucks that said, "This is Hulu's Game of Thrones," because the second that people said that, all the execs went, "Yeah, it is. Yeah, this is our Game of Thrones." And so that's exactly what is happening here. They see something that has a future, even though its source material doesn't have a future, and they're like, "Yes, this will be our Game of Thrones. This will get 5 seasons, whether you like it or not." And so, I guess the question is, what do they do, Chuck? What are they going to cover? What are they going to adapt? Because there's nothing to adapt.
Well, I guess they just do what the original novelists did, look at history and be inspired by it and just come up with the next chapter in the story. But I don't know. Like cuz now I don't know what to make of old Blackthorn anymore. Like that sequence of it. Like now it makes no sense to me. If they're going to keep telling the story, they might as well have not even done that little bit.
Yeah.
Or at least it just reinforces the possibility that it very likely was a imagined like dream type sequence. So but as far as what did they do, I guess they give us what the shogunate looks like. And and what it takes to maintain it, and then I suppose eventually how it all falls apart, because it inevitably does. At least I'm assuming.
Well, yeah, I'm guessing what we're gonna get, because the one thing, of course, the show didn't cover is that sort of postscript that is added to the end of the book that basically is it's like a 2-paragraph postscript. I talked about it the last time we talked about the show, but it basically says, Toranaga rallied his armies, there were many bloody battles, he was victorious, and he became shogun.
Yeah.
And so I'm guessing that that's what they're going to try and do now. They're going to cover all the battles, they're going to cover the war, and then they're going to eventually cover his actual reign as the shogun.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I'd be interested to know if Clavel had any sort of, documents or outline lying around for what he would have done if he would have wrote a sequel to Shogun, because I guess he did in 1981, he did make comments that it was his desire to write a sequel to the book, but he chose to write the book Whirlwind instead, and he never got around to doing a sequel to Shogun. But I don't know, maybe he has a manuscript lying around somewhere that his progeny gave to Justin Marks and Rachel Kondo, the showrunners, and maybe they have something to go off of, because the thing is, I'm not really interested in what they want to do, because the thing that I'll give Rachel Kondo and Justin Marks credit for is that they did a very faithful adaptation for the most part, and the changes that they made, if I didn't fully agree with them, I at least understood why they made those changes. But now that there is no runway left, that there is no source material left, I guess I'm not really that interested in what 2 Californian elder millennials have to say about this world, rather than a novelist and a historian and a former POW like Clavel was. I'm not interested in the elder millennial perspective on this, this world, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with you completely, and I feel this way about everything Hollywood is doing these days, because it's only reboot, remake, reimagining from people who have led uninteresting lives up to this point. What made the original It's a Wonderful Life work so well? It was the lived experience of, the actors and the filmmaker behind it. And that was directly informed by the times they lived in. And how are we going to get that same thing from Brendan Fraser when the worst thing that has ever happened to him was that he was groped and got fat? James Stewart literally was a bomber pilot in World War II and legitimately was going through post-traumatic stress while making that movie. So I think we need to cool off a little bit, Okay, honey, I need you to get off. I need you to get off. You're squishing your brother, and he's getting unhappy, and we are getting distracted. But yeah, it's a problem, and I don't think it's going to be that interesting.
Yeah, same. I think it's going to be very, if anything, it's going to be very by the numbers. Everything great about the original, I guess, what'll now be the first season of this show, everything great about that is pulled directly from the book. It's them just adapting, everything almost in some cases word for word how it happens in the book. And the one sort of tinfoil hat conspiracy that I did want to get out there was, do you think, because, we have to think about this, like I mentioned at the beginning, in terms of the Emmy Awards, because that is how we initially sort of heard about this, was how this show is going to be nominated for Emmys. And if people don't know this, the limited series Emmy category only has 5 nominees, whereas the drama series category has 8 nominees. And so I guess my sort of tinfoil hat conspiracy about this is, do you think there's any chance that this actually never happens? They never make a season 2. And the only reason why they did this is so that they could get into the drama series Emmy category. And then once the Emmys are over, they're just going to be like, oh, sorry, Shogun season 2 actually fell through. It's not going to be made anymore. And so
that would be very hilarious. And it would honestly, because what they should be doing instead of doing a sequel to Shogun is doing the next entry in the Asian cycle of stories that Clavel did. Just do the next one. Kind of like how with AMC and The Terror, they just find a new spooky thing to plug in there that's a historical setting. It's an anthology kind of a thing. All sorts. That would be preferable. And it would be very, very funny. Because if this is the next Game of Thrones, why are they worried about only getting 1 of 5 nominations? Why are they hedging their bets like this?
Yeah, I think it's, if you want to go by what the conspiracy theories are, it's basically because the limited series category this year is much more packed and there's way more competition in that, because you have stuff like Baby Reindeer and
Masters of the Air,
Fargo. And I think the only real competition this year for drama category is, I think, The Crown, The Curse, and I guess maybe Fallout. I don't know if Fallout is highfalutin enough to get a nomination.
You're very, very funny.
I probably not.
The more I think about that show, the more I just cringe. All right, we are back. Matt's unfroze. The baby is put down. And it's time for me to also, be very, very sad. Because Bernard Hill, the actor who played Theoden King of Rohan in Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings, actor in a lot of different projects, even Titanic. The guy really knew how to, pick the box office, bonanzas for his career. And I hope he got good residuals, but he has passed away. It's a very, very sad. I wept. I sat at my desk at work and rewatched the Ride of the Rohirrim scene so I could have a good cry at work again. Because when I was a kid, I thought Theoden was the most boring character in Lord of the Rings, whether it was the books or the movies. It wasn't until I became a grown man and had my own trials and tribulations that I began to understand and empathize with that character more. And Hill really, really, gave that character and his journey all of the gravitas that it needed, and it made that movie really what it is still to me, today versus what it was when I was a kid. But still a bummer. You hate to see this guy go. But can you think of an actor who had a more perfect scene to kind of like speak to their own death later on in their life like this?
Yeah, no, not really. I mean, that's like the first thing I thought of when I heard this was that when his death in the actual Return of the King, when he says like, I go now to my fathers in whose mighty company I shall not be ashamed. But then also like, I mean, Theoden, he is really one of the most underrated characters of Jackson's trilogy because he has some of the best lines, the most emotional scenes, some of the best scenes. Like, you already mentioned his speech before the Ride of the Rohirrim. And then like that scene in Two Towers when he is like knelt in front of his son's grave. Oh, it's just like one of the most emotional like scenes in that entire trilogy. And his voiceover monologue when he is like looking around Helm's Deep and he's when he's like, how did it come to this?
Yeah.
And and he's giving his voiceover basically talking about how hopeless things are at Helm's Deep. And yeah, he's got like some of the best stuff in that entire trilogy. And yeah, Bernard Hill really, really did a credit to that character. And he's going to be missed. And he knew about how shitty the Amazon show is going to be. I don't know if you saw like the news stories that have been sort of bubbling to the top ever since this happened, but one of them was how he was interviewed around the time that the Rings of Power was going to come out, and they basically asked him like, "Are you going to watch Rings of Power?" He's like, "No, I have no interest in watching that. We did it, and we did it the best." And basically said like, "I'm not watching that." Yeah,
yeah. Well, it's just like with Viggo Mortensen and Aragorn being like, no, he wasn't in The Hobbit. I'm not going to come back and just be in The Hobbit for the sake of it. So luckily we were spared that happening. That all said, apparently we are going to be getting some kind of stupid like prequel movies or sequel movies based on what exactly? Just like random passages from the appendices? Is that it now? Is that what we're reduced to? Like why are we making more Lord of the Rings movies, Matt? Why is this our life?
I guess, Peter Jackson, despite, us thinking that he learned his lesson, apparently he hasn't. Yeah, because so what this is it's a Lord of the Rings, new Lord of the Rings movie called The Lord of the Rings: The Hunt for Gollum. It's going to be directed by Andy Serkis, and he's reprising his role as Gollum. And Peter Jackson and his production team are coming back to produce and maybe write. I don't know. They haven't been clear on whether or not he's going to write the movie, but something worth noting, I mean, straight up from the top, is that there is already a pretty acclaimed fan film on YouTube called The Hunt for Gollum.
It's another one of these again, huh?
Yeah, and so there's very much a theory out there right now that essentially Peter Jackson is going to be, or Andy Serkis, I guess, is going to be adapting a fan film because in that fan film, you can go watch it right now. It's up. It did get taken down for a little bit, for about 24 hours. I am assuming by like YouTube's auto takedown feature, but it is back up now. And it is a 40-minute fan film about essentially Aragorn's going on a mission sent by Gandalf to basically find out more about Frodo's magic ring during the events of the Fellowship of the Ring. And so it's basically the hunt for Gollum, and so to get more information. And so yeah, I think that this is essentially going to be an adaptation of a fan film, basically.
Wow, that's disappointing. But I mean,
it's pretty weird. Yeah.
Does this take the wind out of the sails of the Rings of Power series? Does that mean it's going to die an unceremonious death now, since Warner Brothers is getting back in on the on Middle Earth, or what's gonna happen there?
Well, it's strange because, yeah, I think that, that is, if there's any good to come out of this, hopefully that would be it, that it would take the wind out of Amazon's sails with their show. But unfortunately, I think what is more likely to be the case is that we are going to have like multiple Lord of the Rings timelines and stuff going on at the same time because, you're going to have the WB stuff, you're going to have the Amazon stuff, and then there's also like I know that there are like new video games that are coming out, so you're going to have like all these video games out there too that are going to be doing, their own thing. And so we're just going to have all of these different timelines, and it's going to be very strange. Oh, and then you have the animated movie too, which is coming out this Christmas, called the War of the Rohirrim, which is going to be like a animated story about Helm's Deep, basically. And so we'll have that going too. And yeah, it's very, very weird because I'm assuming that has nothing to do with any of this stuff either.
No, from what I understood, it was like a historical battle from the history of Rohan, not necessarily anything happening during the ring sequence. So
yeah, that's how I understood it too.
And what is this obsession with Gollum as a character? They just watched a video game come out and totally fucking bomb on every level, and they're just like, yeah, this is the way, this is the one. People love this bug-eyed bastard. We'll make so much money off of him. And I just don't see it. I think this thing's gonna be I think this is gonna be bad. Because even with the Hobbit movies, did they make $1 billion at any point? Maybe not. I don't know. But they
did do well. Yeah.
The returns are going to diminish immensely, I'm afraid, because this is just not something anyone should be interested in. It's a what is the story? What is there to tell? Yeah, there Gollum is getting tortured by Sauron, and Aragorn goes in on a ranger mission and saves him, or so he can interrogate him himself, basically. That's the
I mean that's pretty much it.
If
that's what they're adapting, yeah.
And
so yeah, it's
dumb.
I don't know, it's completely inexplicable, and I don't know. Like I said, you think that Jackson would have learned his lesson with the Hobbit films, and it had seemed like he had for a bit there, but he has to go back to the well, I guess, now. And the thing, to me, the worst part about this is the aspect of it, the sentence directed by Andy Serkis, because Andy Serkis is responsible for Venom, Let There Be Carnage. So, let that sink in a little bit, because that was awful.
In the bathroom, sweetie.
But I guess if there is...
And sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I was just about to transition because, we have two very, very, unfortunate things happening in Lord of the Rings, but then there is sort of a silver lining to all this Lord of the Rings news we've been getting.
Which is, you can see the extended editions in theaters, remastered and extended. So, what kind of remastering has been done to them? Because I have heard some mixed things about the kind of effects updates that Jackson's doing to his trilogy.
Yeah, so when the original Blu-rays came out for the Lord of the Rings movies, they applied this really, really awful blue filter over everything that just made the movies look absolutely terrible. But they have since remedied that when they released the 4K Ultra HD
I think
discs.
you've talked about it before. Okay.
Yeah, and so this essentially is going to be the new 4K remasters that they're going to be showing. They're not going to be putting in discs in every theatrical location. These will basically be on hard drives that'll be sent to the theaters. And so this is, I guess, if there's any sort of silver lining, this is going to be the first opportunity that you're going to get to see these new 4K transfers on a theatrical screen. They are also going to be the extended versions. And so, yeah, I might have to jump on this, personally, if not all of them, because I don't know. I think that it's a little daunting to see all three of these movies.
It's 12
over
hours
3
of your
nights.
life, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, over like 3 nights. But I don't know. I might have to go and see at least the Fellowship, because
Hmm.
that's my personal favorite of these three movies. So I might have to go and see that before they inevitably ruin this series in
Well,
2026.
and see, and this is a meme I saw shared on the Red Letter Media endless Rich Evans posting page. But someone just took an image macro of Aragorn, when they're in Bree and the Nazgul are stabbing the pillow-filled beds, and they're just in the other inn across the street watching, and and Frodo says like, "What are they?" or whatever, and Aragorn, like, they just superimposed Jackson and like Philippa Boyens and like all the other production team over the Nazgul, and he was like, "They were once great directors, makers of masterpieces, winners of Oscars, box office glory, but then they became addicted to the remake and the reboot, and now they are like zombies, like neither living nor dead, and I was just like, yeah, that's about right, that's what happened." like
Yep.
Hollywood is Sauron, and that is how we're gonna move on to something more pleasant, at least to me, because Bluey is here. It's here to stay. They might be making something a little more woke, it's a Studio Ludo going forward, for those who care about that. I'm sure most don't. But as far as Bluey is concerned, they kind of hit this point where suddenly this show had stakes. Because at the end of one episode, they come home from somewhere and the kids notice a for sale sign in the yard. And that's like
Okay.
the first like big moment of continuity this show has ever had. And it followed it up with this double wide episode where it's like 30 minutes long, and there's a wedding going on. The kids are worried about losing their home, and it just was awesome. As far as Bluey episodes go, like, they are really in their prime. Like they're just making good ones, and they really are doing such a good job with it. And everything happening in Bluey, is beautiful. Especially this sequence that for some reason isn't animated and it's just still images. I'm not sure why, because the music that they used was outstanding, and it's worth it even if you don't have kids, to at least, because I can't relate exactly to what the episode's core emotional thing is, which is like being a child and having things like major like that being out of your control. I grew up in the same house my entire childhood until I graduated from high school. So like I didn't have to deal with moving somewhere new and and having new friends and like losing out on all of that. Like I had a very stable situation. And it paid off. It worked out pretty well. And I recommend it. I know that everyone is probably finding Bluey adults insufferable, so I try not to be one, because good God, are they weird. They are really weird about like the inner lives of the characters of this show. And I try not to do that, because it's just about being entertained and being moved to tears on occasion by a kid's show.
I don't know much about Bluey, but I have heard a bit about the creators, and I really respect some of the things I've heard about them, as far as, the creators of the series, like not selling out and, doing things like protecting the identity of like some of the voice actors. But one thing that I really admire them for, that I heard about this week, was that episode that they just threw up on YouTube because Disney Plus refused to put it on there. I don't know if you saw that episode.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
What is the deal there? Why? I heard that it was about like essentially childbirth, and I can't fathom why Disney would be against something like that. I don't know. Maybe I don't have my facts right there.
God, because there's been a few episodes like that where, like, yeah, like they've had to make. Oh, there was an episode that was all about farting that Disney took issue with for some reason,
Okay.
and there was another episode where the Disney censored Bandit because, like, the Bandit, the dad is just like in the background of a scene talking to a friend, and what he's talking about is getting a vasectomy.
Sure.
And because, like, they've been taught, yeah, and it might be connected to that because they're also thinking about trying to have another baby, and that's like a part of the conversation. And yeah, now God, like, it's there's been a lot of controversies like that where, like, they have to make, there's the Australian version, and then there's the one the normies in America can handle, because Disney thinks that like certain things should be at least taboo, or just they preemptively just say, no, we're not going to show that. Yeah.
Weird.
It is weird. They should be okay. Like you should want to have a nuanced conversation about things like childbirth with kids in a way that isn't creepy, or just sterile and unhelpful. And and that's what I find, like this tackles concepts like death, which, like, with November here, that's something that she thinks about a lot for a 4-year-old, and
Sure.
Things like this help her out more than they are a detriment. And speaking of death, the lives and deaths of Robert Durst, the Jinx, got a season 2. I remember where I was in my apartment in Fargo, in Osgood, watching the final episode of what would be the first season of this, and my jaw just hitting the floor, and just being like, oh God, like where could this possibly go from here? And they kept us waiting like 10 fucking years for the second season of this because his trial just took that damn long. But what have you gotten out of this second season? Has it rationalized its existence yet? Or could you have gotten what you needed just from watching law and crime YouTube videos about this trial?
Yeah, because I mean, that is kind of the central question is, does this justify its existence? Because, like, Andrew Jarecki would want you to think so, because he literally, if you look this show up on IMDb, this isn't considered a season 2. This is literally considered episodes 6 through 12 of season 1. So he wants you to see this as a continuation, not a sequel, and not a cash in. He wants you to think of it as a continuation. And so I think it's kind of a mixed bag, in my opinion. Of the 3 episodes that we've gotten so far, I did really like the first episode. Certain things like the watch party with the attorneys and the investigators, when they were watching that big scene that you were talking about, and then they immediately went into like courtroom mode where they were like, can we use that against him? Can we use that in our case? And I thought that was really, really compelling. And then I think it was the second episode I also found very compelling, where the structure of the second episode was basically, they had this graphic of like a cork board with all the lines connecting it, and it basically was like going through each one of Robert Durst's friends one by one, asking who can we flip, basically. And they were going through all of his friends and his wives and his lovers and stuff like that. And I thought that was very compelling. But then, I don't know, something sort of ground to a halt for me in the third episode, where I was like, oh, this seems like cutting room floor stuff. This seems like deleted scenes stuff, because it was basically mostly focused on how much Susan Berman may or may not have been an accessory to the original murder. And so I don't know, it might be losing steam for me now. I guess I don't know. We're halfway through this second batch of episodes now, and what did you think, or what have you thought so far?
Well, I'm kind of wrapped up in it, and I found that whole angle about Susan Berman fascinating, because like her death was always kind of bizarre. Like it like as far as what the motive might have been, it seemed a little, tenuous at the time when the first season was, being discussed. It was like why kill her? And it makes a lot more sense if she is that complicit in what he had done. But then why wasn't he more beholden to her? In the years past, why was she constantly bumming money off of other people? So yeah, it's definitely like losing steam. I find myself turning episodes off and doing dishes and then coming back like a day or two later and finishing it. But yeah, it doesn't quite have the immediacy of that first season where you were like, holy crap, like this is, you got to get it while it's, the getting's good. Like just like with the first like season of Serial, that podcast. Yeah, there's just so much time has passed, so much has happened. There's other things that feel a lot more vital to my my attention than this.
Yeah.
But I do want to shout out Chingachaven. I find that dude that dude is the best. And his whole gimmick as a raunchy country singer, and the fact that "Cum Stain on the Pillow" is like actually a country standard that Merle Haggard recorded a version of, that's bizarre to me. And the fact that he flipped on Durst is also very interesting. But
yeah, he's definitely a character, a guy that they should have gotten in the first half because of the documentary series. But yeah, I mean, you're totally right. I think the true crime glut and boom is like officially over. Like that was, I guess mid to late 2010s, and I think we're officially out of it now. And so it's interesting how this is definitely not nearly as popular as the first half of this show. And the other big question I have is, do you think that Jarecki has something up his sleeve that is of the magnitude of Robert Durst's sort of bathroom confession from the first half of this series? Like, because I mean, if he doesn't, then what happens? Like, are people basically just like, oh, if he doesn't have something as interesting as that, do people just completely write off this second half of this show?
Yeah,
or what happens?
Because it's kind of just we know exactly what happens in this story. We know he's found guilty. And spoilers for real life, but Robert Durst died. So that's right. I totally forgot that he died. Yeah, because he's just a decrepit, like he had cancer, I assume, right?
Something like
that. Like so. He was just a diseased husk of a man by the end of that trial, because he also was even more isolated than before because COVID was happening while his trial was going on. So, yeah, spoiler of spoilers, we know how this story ends. The mystery is gone. The court system has gotten the answers. So, as far as the truth, as far as justice is concerned, this story is over. And it would take, I would imagine it's a deathbed confession. Before he died, Jarecki gets on the phone or gets in the same room with Durst, and Durst finally just admits to all of it. That would be the thing that would actually be huge.
Nuts.
That'd be nuts. Yeah.
I think you're totally right. If there's going to be anything, it's going to be something like that. But yeah, I guess we'll have to see. Maybe we'll touch on this again once the second half of this season is out.
No doubt, because Jarecki kind of likes that. He likes throwing curveballs at you when you least expect it. And speaking of curveballs, there was a TikTok going around showing clips from this found footage film called Frogman. So Angie was like, hey, we should watch it. And a while ago, I watched this, and I completely fucking forgot about it. But I was reminded about it because I started seeing other, online critics, start, mentioning it and giving their takes on it. And it has an interesting concept. This idea is this guy back in the 90s is on a family vacation, and he's just recording a camcorder on some Great Lake in I guess Michigan or something. and he gets footage of the Frogman, this giant anthropomorphic frog, and no one believes him. It's kind of like a viral thing, and the community where this occurred kind of turns into a tourist trap catered entirely around Frogman to make money. And he's like a nobody washed up filmmaker, amateur filmmaker as an adult, and he's looking for some way to legitimize himself. So he and a friend and an actress who was in his terrible home movies, they take his childhood camera and they go back there to make a movie out of it. And I don't know, the critics really overhyped this, because it does a decent job of like building the world and like giving you kind of all the same found footage tropes one could expect. It does nothing to surprise, but it gets fucking batshit insane at the end. Women are getting fucked by frogs. There's like frog hybrids being born, and then it just kind of ends. And and you're just it was a letdown, I guess is what I'll say, because it never quite builds up before it just spikes and into the absurdity area, and by the time you come back down, you're just like, what the fuck just happened? Like it loses its way a little bit at the end, as much as it needed to do that. They needed to tune it a little bit so like it wasn't so jarring, because it's mostly a very laid back and by the numbers thing. But like they do some like weird man on the street interviews that are funny, where you have people pretending to be Frogman enthusiasts, like in like kooky locals. And of course, it's like there's a weird like cult to Dagon that's like worshiping Frogman, and that's what Frogman apparently is. So you can get this on VOD if you want to check it out, but maybe just wait till it's on Shudder, I guess is my verdict on it. Because we paid money to see this. We rented it twice because we didn't finish it the first time. We fell asleep, and then we had to come back and watch it again.
So you're saying it's because I'd never even heard of this, but this is it's worth watching then. And have you ever seen like I'm trying to think of more like under the radar found footage. Have you ever seen Lake Mungo?
Yeah.
Before? How does it compare to like something like that?
Not as good. Not as good as Lake Mungo. It's not as good as Hell House. I would say like Hell House has more going for it. It's just a little slight, because like there's only the three characters. They're just kind of it actually just feels like people actually just walking around with a camera, just recording themselves doing stuff like people used to do. So it has authenticity, but it's not very entertaining. So like, yeah, if you're gonna watch it, wait for it to be free somewhere. If you just want to watch something a little weird, because it's not actually that scary, in my opinion. Okay. But they tried hard, and I respect people who try.
Yeah.
Now it's time to head to the main event here. Matt, why don't you take it away?
Yeah, so today's featured review, we're talking about The Last Stop in Yuma County. I think that this was an impressive first-time feature movie. I find this, I just would describe it as a slow burn exercise in plate spinning, because there's like a point in this film where I just kind of like thought like, wow, he has so many plate spinning right now between how many characters there are and which ones of them don't know what's going on and which one of them do know what's going on, and who knows about the bank robbers, who doesn't know about the bank robbers, who has a gun, who doesn't have a gun. He is just keeping these plates spinning until, shit basically just pops off. And I think there's nothing fancy about this. There's nothing particularly original, but there's a timelessness to the setup and the payoff. And so it works, in my opinion. And the climax does eventually happen, but it's very strange because it happens about an hour 10 into this hour and 30-minute movie. And so I'm like, okay, where are we going to go from here? Because I find that the movie the next 20 minutes that the movie continues for, it eventually just kind of like fizzles out. And so I don't know. I really want to get your opinion on that last 20 minutes. But for me, watching this movie was, I would compare it to like slowly inflating a balloon until it eventually pops, and then continuing to blow air into the already popped flaccid balloon. And so yeah, that's kind of where I'll leave it right now. But yeah, what did you think of Last Stop in Yuma County?
Like, I think the balloon metaphor, like, definitely applies, because yeah, you don't have a Mexican standoff with that many participants and have it actually like come to its bloody conclusion and then still have more movie left. And there's almost like a mini movie at the end that is like its own self-contained thing, as far as like, but yeah, because there's not exactly a lot of characters that you get to know a lot about. I mean, like they're kept, like Jim Cummings' character in particular in this instance is the most, he has a lot of mystery to him. And this movie, yeah, like it's hard to place the decade it's in. It could be the 70s, it could be the 80s. The fact that some shit kicking country guy is a Malik fan, I think that's very, very funny. And it reminded me a lot though of did you ever see Bad Times at the El Royale?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, where is this kind of a throwback? Like, this is the kind of script that was just churned out in the 90s in the Tarantino boom. Like movies like Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead and the likes of that, where it's tight. It has but it doesn't. It wasn't overindulgent, obviously, and that's why I think, despite it being very familiar and with a lot of things that are pretty typical of the genre, it still succeeds at everything that it set out to do. And it was just very deliberate and spare and elegant in how it all came together, except for where you're like at the end and you're like, okay, the story is over. Why is it still going? And what is the point of it? And I guess what was up with that? Like, why is this movie about the knife salesman more than any other character?
Well, what I took from it was basically like the ultimate point of the movie is essentially anybody is capable of anything if you put them into the right circumstances, or if you give them the right set of circumstances. Because the way the knife salesman character, and the reason why we keep calling him knife salesman is because he literally isn't given a name in the movie. But the reason why he is, he's so like diminutive in the beginning, and he spends literally half the movie just sitting in that booth making like faces at the people who walk in, like a oh shit help me type faces, which Jim Cummings is really good at. But he's, I think that is the ultimate point, is that he is this character that seems like he's probably a good guy. He's probably, he is, if he's not lying about who he is off to his daughter's birthday party. But then he's put into the exact set of circumstances he needs to happen to steal a duffel bag full of money. And then that goes completely sideways for him. And so I think that is kind of the ultimate point of the movie, the message, if you will, is that, anyone is capable of doing something like this if they are given the exact set of circumstances they need.
And I just want to talk on the rest of the cast a little bit.
Yeah.
I really liked Richard Brake. Because
he's great.
He's great. Besides Barbarian, I was trying to... for some reason, I thought he was the same guy as the Sin Eater in Fargo, but maybe I'm wrong about that. He's a different guy, isn't he?
Yeah, different guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, you make a really good point, because This movie is populated, it's cast entirely with that guy actors, character actors that have seen in so many other things that, usually don't get top billing. And in Richard Brake's case, you know what you probably recognized him from is he is the guy who killed Batman parents in Nolan's trilogy.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh,
He's Joe Chill.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's rad. Okay.
Yeah. And you can say that about almost anybody from this movie, because we have the old guy with his wife. That's the guy who survives Anton Chigurh, flips the coin with Anton Chigurh. And then you have like the waitress is the lead from oh god, what is that T West's first movie? Not The Innkeepers, but the other one.
House of the Devil.
Yeah, House of the Devil.
Yeah.
That's what that woman is from. You have the girl who is with the guy who is obsessed with the movies, the girl who gets stabbed in the heart. That girl was the lead in the movie The Vast of Night. You remember that movie, The Vast of Night? Yeah.
Okay.
That's who that girl is.
And then of course Faison Love is in there.
Yeah, Faison Love you got in there. The woman who just randomly shows up at the truck stop at the end with her husband, who gets shot. That's the woman who played Wendy Torrance in Doctor Sleep. And so
that's
yeah,
why. Okay, yeah. So like, yeah, everybody just you knew them from somewhere, and that and that helps like an ensemble film work pretty well, especially when it's as tight as this one is. And God, the guy that was playing the other bank robber, I'm not sure where I've seen him from, but oh God, he just made me so uncomfortable. Like
he was disgusting. Wiping his pits with the napkins.
The fact that he called he was like the shitter, just the way that he would say shitter, like it just he was just deeply unsettling, and I enjoyed that aspect of it. And I just want to also point out that Galluppi also edited the movie in addition to writing and directing it. And
yeah, very impressive.
Very impressive when it's all said and done.
Mm-hmm. Before we move off the actors, though, I do want to call out Jim Cummings, because this guy's so weird to me, because Jim Cummings has like spent his entire career in like mumblecore movies, and then he's gotten into production, like actually producing. He's a producer on this movie, actually.
Yeah. And he was in another like weird indie sci-fi movie too, just doing a bit part. I think it was I forget what it was called, but it was like The Breaks or something like that. It was about alien abductions, and he's just randomly in it.
Yeah, he just like shows up in these like tiny budget movies, and I don't know. He's such a interesting guy to me, because he has the looks to be like a leading man. He has the acting ability to if he wanted to be more famous than he is, he totally could, I think. But instead, it seems like he is deliberately choosing to spend his career in these tiny movies. And I think that, it's kind of admirable in some respects. And the biggest movie he's ever been in was Halloween Kills. And he literally plays the sheriff in the flashback in that movie. When they do the flashback to the original John Carpenter movie, he plays the sheriff that accidentally gets shot by what's his name? The other sheriff, the more popular, or the more talked about sheriff in that movie. But yeah, he's a very, very interesting guy in my opinion.
Interesting filmmaker, interesting, just creative individual. Yeah. And you have to, I don't know, like I wonder what's going to happen with everyone who's been working on this, where they're all going to go from here. Because what kind of a movie does Galluppi make next? Does it keep small scale, or is he going to be, tempted and corrupted by the forces of Hollywood like so many others?
Well, he's doing. We know the answer, and he's doing a Evil Dead movie.
That's right.
And so one of two Evil Dead movies, and I find that very interesting because if you think about what this movie is, it's a slow burn thriller, I guess, that eventually pops off. And when you think about something like the most recent Evil Dead movie, Evil Dead Rise, it's sort of similar in that respects, in that it's a movie that is set in one location, this apartment building, that is sort of a slow burn until shit just eventually hits the fan. And so I find, Evil Dead Rise and this movie have a very similar structure. They have a very similar mentality. They have the one location, one location filming. And so I don't know. I'm very, very interested in what he has to do and what he has to say in the Evil Dead universe. I think it's a good fit for him.
Yeah, well, looking forward to that, because he definitely showed himself to be capable and interesting as a filmmaker. And I hope he gets as many interesting people to, in maybe some bigger names, just to get the draw. But I just want to call out, as someone who loves rhubarb desserts, the utter contempt that guy had for rhubarb pie just made me laugh, because I would have eaten the fuck out of that.
Yeah, the varying degrees of people like, isn't rhubarb a vegetable? And like just some people were like, oh, it's the best, and some people were like, oh, that was awful. And
even Jim Cummings couldn't even say the word.
Yeah, I couldn't even say rhubarb. Yeah, that was so funny. Yeah, that was another one of his weird sort of character traits. Sometimes he would like stutter, and I was like, I wonder what's going on there with his sort of stutter, because there were sort of choices that he chose to give his character that were never explained, never really touched on more than once or twice. But yeah, and I guess in that respect, I did want to ask you.
Yeah.
One thing that I noticed in the movie is that, and it was never really drawn that much attention to, but there is a part in the movie where he rips off a piece of paper, like from the newspaper. He writes something down on like a note, and then he shoves it into his pocket. And then at the very, very end of the movie, as he is shot, as he is crawling away from the exploded truck and dying, he tries to pull that piece of paper out of his pocket. And I'm like, okay, here's the part where we get to see what's written on the sheet of paper, but then nothing. You don't see what it is. It doesn't do a close-up on it or anything, and we have no idea what that was. So do you have any theories there as to what was going on there?
Hard to say. It might have been like probably a note to his daughter. Maybe because he expected to die, and he wanted that to be found on his body, just in case. Like that would make sense. But yeah, it's hard to say, because obviously they keep it a secret.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's strange. They don't really draw any attention to it other than while he's writing it, and then when he's trying to pull it out of his pocket. But very, very weird, like stuff like that. And I don't know, I found it also very strange that for a knife salesman, he only had one set of knives in his trunk. Did you notice that?
I did.
It's like, dude, are you lying? Are you lying about who you are? Are you lying about what your job is? Like, what is...
I have expected there to be a body in his trunk.
Sure.
And I was a little disappointed when it didn't pay off in that way, because then that would have made his villain turn at the end make a little more sense. But I guess the larger point is anybody could, try and be an opportunist in a moment like that, and the consequences of it. And then it has a big finish. It has a good payoff at the end, and the baby
an
explosion.
Yeah,
and the baby didn't die. It's an orphan, but it didn't die.
Yeah, that is very important. Yeah, that was very strange. I mean, we didn't really, or we touched on it a little bit, but yeah, the last 20 minutes of this film are so inexplicable, because it's almost as if he wrote the script for this movie and then realized, like, oh, I only have enough material here for like an hour, a little over an hour, and I want to at least get to the 90-minute mark. And so here, let me add this little, postscript type thing at the end here, because that's sort of what it seemed like to me. Everything after the Mexican standoff just seemed very, very tacked on. But overall, I loved everything up until that point, and I think this is totally worth it. And when the Mexican standoff actually did happen, that was great. I mean, the people who lived and the people who died totally wasn't expecting it.
No.
I totally expected the waitress to at least survive, maybe Faison Love's character to survive. I was not expecting who came out in that situation.
And because and then just how it continued on even after the bullets were done flying, that was pretty interesting too. But I think we'll move on to the mentionables this week. I'll let you take the lead on it, but just know that I've been doing the exact opposite of what you did as far as Fallout is concerned.
Yeah, it's funny that you said that, because this is like everybody else, I've been playing the Fallout games because of the TV show. And this is actually my first time playing. I'm playing New Vegas and I'm playing Fallout 4 with PC, or on PC with mods, because when I played both of those games initially, I played Fallout 4 on PS4 and I played New Vegas on PS3, which the experience of playing New Vegas on PS3 was an infuriating experience. It was like, crashes every like 20 minutes. And I just remembered, doing that when I was a kid or when I was, college age. And I got so pissed doing that. But
it was broken. It was categorically broken.
So busted. But now I'm playing these two games on PC with mods. And I find that I don't find mods quite as intimidating either, because I've been using the mod manager Vortex. And so that it makes everything very, very easy. And I'm really liking the experience. I mean, beyond the obligatory, like, unofficial bug patches and texture enhancements, which everybody, gets as far as mods, I've also been using a couple mods that I wanted to call out specifically by name. One of them is called Start Me Up, which skips the entire intro sequence to Fallout 4, which can be really, really annoying to have to replay. On subsequent playthroughs.
I've used Live Another Life. I haven't heard of Start Me Up, because like, can you like pick like different like character like templates, like I did a playthrough as an Enclave survivor one time, and so then I was, every time I ran into the Brotherhood of Steel, I was just automatically their enemy, and that kind of made it more fun.
This is more so like they give you all of the choices that you get, such as customizing your look and customizing your character's traits, but then it like immediately just starts at the part where you are coming out of the vault.
Nice.
Immediately.
Okay.
And so
can you go back in the vault?
You can. Yep.
Okay.
Okay. So it sort of fast forwards through that entire intro sequence, and which is really nice on subsequent playthroughs. But then I also have the mod that tells you what crafting components are in each item before you pick them up, which has been really nice. I've got the lock picking skip mod, because it's so annoying to have to pick locks when you're playing through the game after more than one playthrough, and then the mod that gives vendors more caps, because it's always annoying when you go to a shop and the vendor has like I have 80 caps to trade with you, and that is always so annoying. But the one mod, the best one that I want to call out by name, is called Raw Input, and it completely fixes the shitty mouse sensitivity settings in Fallout 4, because there is something so bad feeling about like the default like Bethesda like mouse settings in Fallout 4. There's just something off about it, and the mod Raw Input really, really fixes all that.
Never
stuff.
heard of that one. Well, I'll have to give it a try because, like I alluded to, I've
Yeah.
just did. I reinstalled Fallout 4. I own New Vegas on like I got it for free on like Epic or something like that with like all the DLC, and I didn't want to have to go through the pain of using Heroic to get it installed on my Steam Deck. I don't even know how I do mods on the Steam Deck either, and I've just been going vanilla because it's just I just wanted to just reacquaint myself with it, and like all the annoying things. I'm remembering why I used mods, like when you use a scope and you have to have your screen go black so that the sight can be brought up to your character's face. Like that's the most annoying shit in the world, and I'm living with it because I just wanted to get back in the swing of things with that game, with those games, because it was my dream to have like a fully kitted out power armor thing, and that's basically all that I'm focused on right now. Is I want jetpacks, but I've also been I caved, and because I had a day this week where I had to watch Luca, and since I worked on a Sunday, I got a day off during the week, and I downloaded Hades 2, the early access that they release that they've put out. And this is the most optimized game for the Steam Deck I've ever seen. It never dips in frame rate. Everything looks gorgeous. It's everything that I kind of would hoped I would get out of a sequel to this. Because the premise is that Kronos, the Titan of Time, has woken up. He's killed Hades, and Zagreus and the mom, and they had and Hades and I forget the mom's name. They had another baby, Melanoi. I forget how you say it exactly, and she's been kept alive in the crossroads with the witch Hecate, and she's being raised and trained to wage a holy rampage of revenge against Kronos. And I don't know, it just has a lot more urgency than that first game, which was basically just like, you have all the time in the world. You're just trying to get one up on your mean old dad. And in this instance, you're trying to get one up on your genocidal evil grandfather. And it has a lot going on. It's a lot more tuned as far as like items and resources and how you use that to progress your character's abilities through the game. And it's just as much fun. Like I've only finally unlocked all the 4 main weapons. I don't know if there's any more. And the only complaints I really have is that they've kind of un-Greeked a lot of the Greek gods in a way that only makes DEI compliance sense. Like they're just they're making Hermes look different than the first game. Now he's Asian for some reason. Like that kind of thing. And it's just like, why are we doing this, guys? And it's also just really obvious that some really crummy, like Gen Z or millennial twee people are writing the dialogue or coming up with the character designs. Because Scylla and like Charybdis and the Sirens are a boss at some point. And they just, the way that they just talk like modern day internet people. And it's like they just don't have any of the grandiosity that the other god characters do. And that's a disappointment because it takes me out of it. And like, and that was an aspect of the first game that I loved, was all the different voice lines that you could get. Like you very infrequently heard the same thing twice. And so I'm already a little grated because Scylla is fucking hard. Okay. Like that is like the first boss fight in this game that I have found to be like practically impossible just because of how much they're fucking throwing at you. But you get the sense that they're respecting the people who are very seasoned from the first game and, are up for the challenge. And by God, have they made it challenging, but they also seemingly, even in this early state of the game, have way more content than the first game had. And there's
Yeah, I've heard that. With this game, I'm really glad that you were going to talk about it today, because I've had my finger over the buy button because I played plenty of Hades 1. I think I beat it I want to say it 4 times before I just kind of eventually just called it good. And I heard that this game launched in like version like 0.91 or something like that, which is weird because, if people don't know, 1.0 is typically like when a game is considered finished.
It's gone gold. And so it's like,
yeah, gone gold. So it's like, why is it? It's like, how is this game already this far complete? Because it is still in early access technically, and that's the only reason why I have hesitated on buying it, because I'm not really. I don't know. Early access can be hit or miss far as. So yeah.
In this instance, I'll just say this: it doesn't feel unfinished. It might, like, I know that you could play through a lot of Baldur's Gate or like Rogue Trader in early access. Like you could get like through like 2 acts of those games before you started running into parts that weren't ready yet. Mm-hmm. But where I'm at now, I don't know, maybe I just haven't hit that wall yet. But yeah, I feel like I'm getting the full experience, like as it is. Like there's some art that isn't there. They have lots of placeholder art for like the different like trinkets you can get from certain characters if you give them like the palm juice or whatever, or the nectar of the gods, whatever, the ambrosia thing that you can use to make people like you more. And so I don't know. Yeah, I would, I wouldn't begrudge you if you hold off, but if you want something new to experience, this is definitely it, because it's very Melanois handles very different from Zagreus. They've done a good job of giving you a distinct experience as opposed to just rehashing that first game.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out, because I've heard similar things to what you're saying as far as it feeling like a very complete package already. So yeah, definitely gonna check that out.
And people should really go check out Last Stop in Yuma County. It's a throwback. It's a clean, slick little 90-minute experience, which we have been scientifically informed is the ideal length for a movie. Did you hear that?
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm surprised.
Yeah, like it was, I don't know how scientific this was. I think it might have just been a Netflix survey. But yeah, apparently audiences want a 90-minute movie. This is a pretty solid one. And I'm going to apologize if Matt froze a couple of times. We're going to try and edit around that as much as we can. We had some technical difficulties this week, but we got her done. And we'll see you all. I guess you'll see Matt next week with his alternative summer guide, and then we'll reconvene together to review Furiosa in a couple weeks. Looking forward to that. But thank you, Matt, and have a good rest of your week.
Yep. See ya.